I'm Simon Williams, I'm the Chief Economist for HSBC Middle East. I want to give you my view of how this region is likely to fare against a backdrop of deepening distress, economic distress in the Western world. See, back in 2009, the last time the Western world slipped into recession, this region got hurt. Economic growth dropped sharply, asset prices slumped, credit vanished as liquidity drained away across the region. I'm optimistic we fare better this time for two main reasons. The first is about weakness. Back in 2008, we were at the peak of a 5-year boom. Asset prices had risen very strongly. For a decade, almost, credit was more available than it had been ever in the past. Now, the situation could hardly be more different. Asset prices broke 3 years ago. They have yet to reflate. That lack of excesses, the absence of bubbles across so much of the region, I think makes us less vulnerable to a downturn in the Western world than we were back in 2008, 2009. I also think that the region's traditional strengths will give us support. Across the Western world, I see governments being held back by high levels of debt, held back by massive fiscal imbalances, held back by losses in real incomes. Here in the GCC, particularly, including here in the UAE, we have governments that are wealthy, that are able to continue to step up public spending to keep that domestic demand story going. And I think that will give growth support this year and next year and beyond. That said, I think it's very important to recognise that we are by no means isolated, by no means insulated from the deepening distress that we have in the outside world, and there are some key channels that we can identify. The first is about access to foreign capital. This is a region which has run very substantial savings, but has often deployed those savings outside, has instead looked to foreign direct investment, to bond issuance, to syndicated loan issuance to fund its domestic capital programs. If the external markets continue to dislocate, if access to foreign funding remains difficult, then the ability to finance the big ticket capital spending programs that we're planning here in the region will be constrained. I'm also concerned that this will perhaps complicates the ability to access refinancing for those governments, for those government-related entities that have substantial substantial refinancing needs coming through over the next 18 months or so. I'd also caution that while growth in the region is holding up, it's running at around 3.5%, and that's coming almost entirely from the government sector. The private sector is still being held back. It's still cautious. I think in light of what happened 2 or 3 years ago, it's still cautious because of the problems it sees in the outside world. That means, I think, that growth, though strong at the moment, is dangerously unbalanced.